The gag order will continue to apply to Trump, and he'll be the first president in American history, or former president, or candidate in American history to have to go into a presidential debate with a gag order. All this effort to protect Biden, compare and contrast with the crazed effort to destroy Trump, and judges who are trying to do the right thing by Trump while protecting judges who seem to be breaking all the rules related to Trump. Did you see the news today or this week? There was a report that a lawyer buttonholed Judge Engoron. Engoron is the Democratic Party judge who abused Trump so terribly in this fraud case, this civil fraud case brought by the anti-Trump politician, Democratic Party politician Letitia James, and found he committed fraud somehow by not valuing properties as he was supposed to, according to Judge Engoron, the real estate expert. No one was harmed, no one was damaged. So he found he committed fraud and then fined him nearly $500 million. So he's trying to destroy his business. Well, this lawyer buttonholed Engoron and says that he and Engoron had, let me go to the tweet. I describe what he said. There's strong evidence of yet another incredible example of misconduct by New York Democrat anti-Trump judges. Judge Engoron evidently had an intense conversation about his abusive case to destroy Trump's business with an outside lawyer. The New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct will now consider whether the rules of judicial conduct were violated in this instance, according to sources familiar with the matter. And the lawyer evidently talked to local news station NBC, the local New York station, describing this conversation. And as I read it, he wasn't an anti-Trump lawyer. I think he was critical of Engoron. But Engoron engaged with him. And you're not supposed to talk about cases like that with parties in a private way, or certainly with non-parties in a private way. Completely inappropriate. And Judge Cannon, of course, is being viciously attacked. Judge Cannon is the judge handling the sham case that the Biden gang is bringing against Trump over the documents. The New York Times had some leaks this week saying that the chief judge in the district that Judge Cannon works in, and some other judge, so that you had leaks by judges, supposedly told Cannon that, she should get off the Trump case. So what was going on? Were the judges trying to rig the case by knocking her off because she was seen as too friendly, or as I say, too fair? I mean, they're trying to blow up the justice system in South Florida to go after Trump because Judge Cannon is holding Jack Smith accountable. I mean, just today she had a hearing. Finally, there's a judge who's willing to take this issue on. Talk about the emperor has no clothes, over the issue of whether Jack Smith is constitutionally valid in terms of his appointment, and whether his powers are valid or not. And I've been long calling on the rule of law to apply to the Justice Department in terms of these special counsels. They go in and they hire these contract lawyers. I don't care how well established they are. They're contract lawyers, not subject to confirmation. I've been talking about this for years, and I have a tweet from almost, I think it's 6 years ago, talking about it with Mueller. Let's go to that. The U.S. attorney is appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate before he can take up his job. And if there are prosecutors in the Justice Department who aren't subject to confirmation, they answer to people who are, or answer to people who answer to people who are. So there's this lawful delegation of authority. In this case, that doesn't happen. He is not supervised day to day by the appropriate officials in the Justice Department. Therefore, he doesn't really have the authority under our Constitution to do the work he's supposedly wanting to do, which is to investigate, and let's assuming he's doing the right thing and just trying to do his job. It's not about Mueller at this point. It's about the Office of Special Counsel. And if I were them, I'd go back to square one, however politically uncomfortable it is, to make sure that that office is lawful and lawfully run. U.S. Attorney. So let's go back to that video, because I want to repeat the tweet. Let's go back to that tweet again. So, and I kind of retweeted my post. Special counsel operation is unconstitutional. And this was a quote from a brief filed on behalf of the former Attorney Generals Mukasey and Meese. Smith is the classic emperor with no clothes. Huh, I forgot I mentioned that, or that was in the brief. He has no more authority to represent the United States in this court or in the underlying prosecution than Patrick, I can't see, Mahomes, Kim Kardashian, or Mick Jagger, or anyone else like that. And the court should grant the stay. And so Judge Cannon was describing it, and you know, as I was saying 6 years ago, I looked a lot younger then. It's disturbing how much younger I looked. You know, Judge Cannon has the opportunity to uphold the rule of law here. This is a serious constitutional concern. The Supreme Court's been asking about it. No one's kind of raised it up there in a direct way yet. At least Trump hasn't. And, you know, as I was saying 6 years ago, you know, you have this, basically this rogue prosecutor who doesn't really report to anyone in the traditional sense. So what authority is he exercising? I mean, the only special counsel that could probably be appointed is someone who's been confirmed by the Senate, or someone who's literally supervised by someone who's appointed by the Senate, meaning like a junior prosecutor, because they don't have authority apart from the authority that flows from the president or confirmed appointees. I mean, that's the argument, and there's other arguments more technical about whether there's any spending authority for the position, which is a different issue. I mean, Thomas Massey asked Garland about this the other day. I think I played it last week, or we played it last week on, I don't know if we can find it. But Judge Cannon had a big hearing about it, and it went on for a few hours. I don't know how she's ultimately going to rule. I mean, the thing about the emperor with no clothes is, if you go back to the story, the problem with saying the emperor has no clothes in Washington, D.C., and it mimics the history of the story, no one cares. I mean, the emperor didn't care. He just kept on walking, quite happy, even though everyone kind of realized he had no clothes, but everyone didn't want to say anything. And even when they did, the emperor thought, just shows that they don't know anything. So that's the challenge of these types of challenges to the authority of an office that's kind of been used improperly for 20, 25 years now. Like Weiss, who is the special counsel for Biden, or Hunter, or whatever. No, it's for Hunter. Joe's protected, excuse me. He's a special, he was appointed as a U.S. attorney. Her, who was special counsel on the Biden document probe, was not appointed as a special, he was a former U.S. attorney, but he resigned, or he left office. So I don't think he had proper authority under the Constitution to do these investigations either. At least that's my view. Whether the courts agree or not, I don't know. In the meantime, we have this presidential debate coming up next week. And not only do you have rogue prosecutors, you have rogue judges. He's still suffering under this gag order. He's still facing the prospect of going to jail under this kangaroo court proceeding. and I don't know what the Supreme Court hasn't yet ruled on this, a big immunity issue, which I'm sure you've been following, about whether he can be prosecuted for acts as president after he leaves the presidency. I tell you, the new rules seem to me to be, if that's the case, that he can be, Biden can be prosecuted for enabling the invasion, for his new scheme to grant amnesty to 500,000 people plus, illegal aliens, for aiding and abetting human trafficking and child trafficking. So I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do, but maybe Biden should be hoping the Supreme Court shoots down his efforts to prosecute Trump, because it will protect him. But the Supreme Court should also take action to curtail this abuse of Trump up in New York. And I talked about that, and the court can't do it soon enough. He's going to go into this debate under a gag order next week. That's incredible. I was on with John Solomon and Amanda, his co-host, just the other day talking about these issues. Let's play that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the perception of much of America is that political retribution is continuing, especially in the case of this New York trial. And I don't think we've had you on since that guilty verdict. At which point the sentencing occurs, I imagine President Trump and his legal team are going to appeal. Do you think they should take it straight to the Supreme Court?
Oh, I think they should have taken it to the Supreme Court yesterday. I don't think they should wait for July 11th. I mean, it's abuse on top of abuse. I mean, we're facing the prospect of President Biden being held hostage to Judge Merchan and the campaign being held hostage. It's bad enough it's happening now during the campaign, but literally during a debate with Biden, he's going to be attacked on this. He's being attacked right now. And under this gag order, he can't fully defend himself. And on top of the whole involvement, or I would say the effort by New York Democrat politicians and a Biden donor, Judge Merchan, to hijack our federal campaign through this meritless prosecution and this sham verdict, it needs to be stopped by the federal courts. And the Supreme Court is uniquely positioned, given its unique authority in the federal system, to uphold the rule of law. You know, if the state of Arizona does something in the area of immigration law, the Justice Department comes down on them like a ton of bricks. Oh no, we own the area of immigration. You can't do anything. You're preempted. But you have a Democrat court up in New York use federal election law to hijack and disrupt our campaign by pretending they can prosecute crimes related to it, and the Biden Justice Department is silent. They should have come in and shut it down. And if the Justice Department won't do its job, maybe the Supreme Court will. And I don't think the country should have to wait to see Trump further abused and our system further compromised through another kangaroo court proceeding, which is now being called a sentencing, which to me is as a political a proceeding as anything you'd see in places like Russia or China or North Korea.
Tom, earlier today there were reports.
Yeah, I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do, but I think they should be asked to do something. I mean, there were decisions this week I wasn't all that thrilled with. There was a decision that essentially, I read it, it was a kind of a tax case, and I don't profess to be an expert in tax law or even taxes, but I didn't like it. As I was reading it, I said, I don't like this, because it suggested to me that the court was willing to consider taxes on unrealized wealth or income. And the 5-4 majority pretended they were not necessarily opening up the door there, but many thought they might be. And this is a big issue, whether or not, because the left wants to essentially target unrealized gains in the property that people have, whether it be stocks or real estate. Imagine having to pay taxes on the increased value of your home. or on the increased value of your stock portfolio, even though it's just sitting there and you haven't cashed it out. I mean, the left desperately wants to do that at the federal level. And the Supreme Court kind of opened the door a little bit to that. And then secondly, they ruled 8-1 on this issue about whether someone subject to a protective order can lose their Second Amendment gun rights, their civil rights. And the court said, sure, it's perfectly in line with the tradition of America. And I wasn't convinced of that. And the only person who dissented was Justice Thomas, and I quoted a story or an analysis of his decision. Let's go to that tweet. Justice Thomas was the sole dissenter with the powerful argument, and this is the quote from the SCOTUS blog, which covers the court. Justice Thomas concluded it is not about whether states can disarm people who threaten others, because states already have a way to do so by charging the person making the threat with an aggravated assault. The real question, he suggested, is whether the government can strip the Second Amendment rights of anyone subject to a protective order, even if he's never been accused of or convicted of a crime. It cannot, he asserted. So in my view, that's kind of like, as far, in terms of being right, that's a majority of 1 by Justice Thomas. So I don't know what's going to happen with these other decisions, but it just shows you that even in a court that nominally 6-3 is conservative, you can get decisions that conservatives can disagree with often. I mean, in this case, it was an 8-1 ruling. I'm not buying into it. But the Supreme Court needs to take action to protect Trump. That's for sure, because they have an obligation, in my view, under our system of government, to ensure the Constitution isn't blown up by out of control, politicized prosecutors and judges. The state of New York isn't going to fix it and curtail the abuses, then it's up to the federal government. Frankly, the state of New York shouldn't have been even allowed to mess in this area, as I talked about with John Solomon. So this is going to continue to be a major issue. The gag order will continue to apply to Trump, and he'll be the first president in American history, or former president, or candidate in American history, to have to go into a presidential debate with a gag order. Unbelievable. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.